or welcome to the Right Now Project. The Right Now Project is dedicated to anyone who's going through a struggle and is seeking help, information, support, and inspiration, probably most of all. Your struggle might be overwhelmed with everything going on in the world right now. It might be anxiety, loss, addiction, grief, trauma, divorce, on and on. The Right Now Project is about creating a space through this podcast where people can come without judgment to share their story and all of its incredibleness and not so greatness. My belief is we need each other to heal. We're inspired by each other's stories, each other's strength, and each other's courage. Share your story and watch what happens. All right, Guy McPherson here, and if you're returning listener, thank you so much for coming back here. And if it's your first time listening, welcome. This is a podcast about being who we are, trying to be who we are, honoring that struggle, and trying to do away with the negative loops that run in our head, the unhealthy habitual patterns that we are so accustomed to that get in the way of us becoming ourselves, of us becoming truly who we are, truly moving in the direction of our gut, our heart. And this is not easy. Why is it not easy? Because we have patterns built up. We have voices from history, from our childhood built up about what's important, what should be important, how we should act, how we should prioritize our lives, our education, our careers, and so forth. And I have fallen prey to this. I've kind of zigged and zagged to a certain degree, I feel. But, with this process going on in my life right now, which is my divorce, things have opened up, and it's so easy to allow the barriers, the voices say, "Guy, don't talk about that. You shouldn't do that." Or, "Guy, what are you doing? Don't share that. No one's going to believe that. People aren't going to listen." It's so easy to do that, but it's a step-by-step process. And if I listened to that, I'd be in the same place I was. And I feel that I'm not. Things have shifted for me. I don't know. Well, the impetus was this impending divorce with my soon-to-be ex-wife, L. I call her L, letter L. Her names begin with L. But and again, this is not about bashing her or anything like that. It's about my process and how this has affected me and is impacting me. But it's opened up. It's freed up energy and creativity for me. And I think in a previous episode, I've talked about how I've felt ashamed for that. I mean, oh my God, I'm feeling more creative in spite of this or because of this. And yeah, yes, it is. And that, when I started to feel that, I started thinking about projects, about getting back into my art, which I haven't gotten into. I've thought about traveling more. I thought about just being more open and vulnerable. And look, when I say that, I don't mean just wantonly being vulnerable for the sake of being vulnerable and exposing yourself in all manner of ways. No, I'm just talking about being who we are. It's so easy to check ourselves, to move and talk through filters. And yes, we live in a society and a culture, and we need to a certain extent to do that. But how many times do we not move in a creative way because of how we're supposed to act? How many times do we not dance or sing because we're supposed to act in a certain way? And what's crazy to me is my other podcast, the Trauma Therapist podcast. I I continue to interview therapists who've dedicated their lives to helping people who've been impacted by trauma. And I love interviewing people and getting in there and finding their heart, their core, who they are. And it's not really about how they work with their clients. It's about how the hell did they get into this field? What inspired them and how do they keep doing this? And that often leads to incredible stories of inspiration, of overcoming, of their own trauma, and how they move through that, how they're continuing to move through that, and maybe how they, in their initial stages, didn't deal with that. But getting to that heart, finding that core, that process really made me think about my own process, my own self. And that's what this podcast is about. It's about celebrating ourselves, celebrating our heart, our core, who we are. Recently I posted this thing on Facebook. I want to see if I can find it here. Excuse me. Let's see here. I was reading, and I still am reading Tim Ferriss's book, Tools of Titans, and it's really awesome. It's just so incredibly inspiring to me to read about people who are just so passionate about what they do, and I love reading about the books they're reading and what they're listening to and their daily routines and so forth. And I think actually some of the most profound parts of that book actually are when Tim shares about his own journey and his own processes and his own challenges. I'd love to have him on the other podcast actually. But anyway, I shared a quote that I discovered in that book, and it's by Neil Gaiman, Gaiman, the author, from his University of the Arts commencement speech. And the quote goes like this. It's short. The moment that you feel that just possibly you're walking down the street naked, exposing too much of your heart and your mind and what exists on the inside, showing too much of yourself, that's the moment you may be starting to get it right. Let me read that again. The moment that you feel that just possibly you're walking down the street naked, exposing too much of your heart and your mind and what exists on the inside, showing too much of yourself, that's the moment you may be starting to get it right. Why is that so awesome? Because we don't often get there. We don't allow ourselves to walk down the street. Look, yes, I'm not talking literally, that we don't want to share who we are. We've got so many damn friggin' filters and barriers and walls up. But it's that vulnerability of allowing ourselves to share our scars, our scrapes, our nicks, our blemishes, our so-called imperfections, that allows others to think, whoa, maybe I can do that too, right? There's I think, in a lot of the people I've encountered who are just themselves, who allow themselves to do this and be this way, there's a presence there. There's a calmness there. There's a sense that they don't have to prove themselves to anyone. And when that sense and sensation permeates, right, one's being, there's a calmness there. There's a relaxation there, which in turn resonates with the person sitting in front of you. And maybe for the first time, it allows that person to think that they can accept themselves, that they can accept who they are, and that maybe those blemishes that they have, that those scars they've carried around with themselves for so long, that they don't have to hide, that maybe those scrapes and bruises, I'm not talking literally, but challenges and hills they've climbed and things that they haven't been happy about or maybe wanted to cover up so much. But maybe those things are not things to be kept away, but actually part of their uniqueness and individuality and beautifulness and incredibleness and inspiration. And we connect with each other when we're like this, right? We feel it. You feel it. How, man, I remember when I was in graduate school and I was doing a lot of commuting. I got my doctorate in clinical psychology, and I was doing commuting to my internships and so forth. And I was doing a lot of commuting, and I was listening to podcasts. I was listening to a lot of podcasts about specifically really entrepreneurs who are doing amazing things with their lives. And I thought to myself, man, these people, I mean, am I so different from them? And it really inspired me to step out, and start a podcast. I'd never started a podcast. I'd never interviewed people before. But it's when we grab hold, when we allow ourselves to open that door within ourselves and allow our tidal wave of emotion and passion to come forth. It's powerful. It's exciting. It's inspiring. And I think for me, it's a day-to-day thing. It's a day-to-day process because it's very easy to go whoosh, slip back into this treadmill existence. And look, right? We got families. I got kids. If you have kids, you have to have a routine in a sense to exist. And yet, for that reason, I find it challenging. So I've got to, read books, and I've got to listen to things that are going to help inspire me and challenge me, because this openness, this allowing oneself to honor who they are, not just look at all of our intricacies and uniqueness and our individualities and our imperfections, not just look at those and admire those, but to incorporate those and honor those into our lives. It takes, for me at least, it's a practice. It's a journey. It's a process. It's a path on and on and on. But it's one step, right? One step forward, another step forward. Look, this podcast is a result of it. I don't know who's listening. I'm trying not to look at the analytics to be so concerned about who's listening, because I think that will impact what I do, how much of this I do, and I don't want to do that. I don't want to do that. I do want to celebrate our gut, our heart, self-trust. We know in our gut what moves us. We know it. We know it. It might be hard to hear. It might be this little voice way back here. Guy, you're creative. Guy, you're creative. We may have lost contact with that voice, but we feel it. It's there. Whatever it is for you. And sometimes it takes a moment of silence, a moment of quietude. But there's so much energy there. There's so much excitement there. And when we connect with people on that level, when we connect with people in that zone, magic happens. All right. So I'm in the process now of recording these episodes about my divorce. And I just wanted to input this here. I think the next episode I'm going to continue with the series, but I just wanted to interject this here because this has been open and up for me, this whole process of doing this. It's kind of behind the scenes in a sense, but I want to thank you for listening. Head on over to therightnowproject.com. Shoot me an email. Let me know what your thoughts are. If you like this podcast, if you love this podcast, please leave a review on Apple iTunes, and have an awesome day. Go out there, challenge yourself, trust your gut. Let me know what happens. All right, take care.